Hello everyone, I'm Bruffy1322 and this video is going to show the fastest fully upgraded vehicles in the GTA Online SUVs class in terms of lap time. As always, the position counter is in the top left with the best lap time the vehicle achieved in the top right, and for this 2020 series I'll be showcasing the non-raceable vehicles first. However, we don't actually have any non-raceable vehicles in this class, so we go straight into the regular raceable vehicles list with the Patriot Stretch in 30th place overall. This video only focuses on track performance, so if you're interested in top speed, where braking, cornering and acceleration aren't relevant, check the link in the description for the top speed testing series, and if you want to know more information about this testing, including the extent to which it's accurate and how useful it is for you personally, have a read of the full description as everything that you need is in there. This video lists all vehicles and is correct as of the casino heist update. For any SUVs added after that or other classes of cars, check the playlist linked in the second line of the description, and feel free to check out my Patreon or become a YouTube member if you want to support this work and get testing results of any new cars a little bit early. So this 2020 SUVs video, in the middle part of it, is pretty much exactly the same as I think it was 2017 when I last did a video about this class. The only additions have been the Patriot Stretch, which is in 30th place at the very bottom. It's even slower than the Patriot, which is slow enough on its own, and the top three vehicles as well. In the middle pack, we've got pretty much what you would consider the standard SUVs. SUVs from when the game first released, or even a few little updates as well, that have the sort of pace and handling characteristics that you would expect from an SUV. We had the old style Baller first of all. That's one of 6 Ballers that we'll see throughout the course of this list. We got the Dubster 2 there, and we also see the Dubster 1 basically, but they're just the regular Dubster further on in the list. The reason that they are different in terms of performance is because the regular Dubster, you can add a rear tyre on the back of the Dubster and that will act like a spoiler and give you extra traction in the corners, whereas the Dubster 2 comes with that stock when you find it in traffic and things like that, so you don't get the extra traction bonus from that. Apart from that, those cars are exactly the same. Same goes for the 2 Cavalcades, the old model and the new model. Those are exactly the same in terms of performance, and a lot of SUVs around this area, like the Landstalker for example, we're looking at 1 minute 17, 1 minute 18 levels of lap time. And that's, it's pretty slow overall for vehicles in GTA, but there's certainly a lot of vehicles that are also relatively close together. And if you were to limit yourself to a certain number of SUVs, you could actually get a pretty fun race with a few, different sized and different speed SUVs around this mid pack. They're a unique thing to drive. They're big, bulky, quite heavy, not an awful lot of traction. So the SUVs class is probably overlooked a lot from a racing perspective, but it can be quite fun. So we're coming up to obviously the top 15 here. We've got the Granger in 15th place with a 1 minute 16.2, and it's not long before we're going to start seeing the big collection of Ballers. But before that, we've got basically what used to be the top few vehicles in the SUVs class in 2013, back when the game was first released. The Rakoto here with a 1 minute 15.9 in 14th place. Then we've got a new DLC vehicle with the XLS. Yes, the regular XLS is slower than the armoured XLS. So the SUVs class has certainly had a few DLC vehicles over the years. Some of them have completely changed the class and some haven't. The XLS is definitely one of those that didn't. And then we've got another 2013 vehicle in 12th place with the Radius. But after the Radius, interestingly in 2013 it was always a battle between the Radius and the Baller. And the Radius had the traction in the corners, whereas the Baller had the straight line speed. But now, ever since the DLC where we got a ridiculous number of Ballers, we've got 5 different Ballers all in the same section of the listing. So in 11th place we have the Baller LE LWB armoured version, which is slightly slower than the Baller LE LWB. So both long wheelbase versions of the Baller are slower than the stock regular new version of the Baller, not the old version that we saw earlier in the list. Also, don't do a drinking game for how many times I say Baller in this video. It's ridiculous how many there are. So in 9th place we've got the original Baller from 2013. This always used to go up against the Radius back in the day. 4 racers. Like I said, this had the speed, the Radius had the traction. So that sits in the middle of the 5 Baller variants. And then ahead of it we've got the 2 LE versions. So the 2 Baller LEs are quicker than the regular Baller, and the LWB versions are slower than the regular Baller. And first of all, in 8th place, we've got the Baller LE Armoured, which is slower than the regular Baller LE, which is the quickest version of the Baller. These are all very close in terms of lap time, as you're probably seeing, 1 minute 14. It's about a second separating all 5 of them, but it is a noticeable difference that the 2 LE versions are quicker and the non-armoured version is just that little bit quicker to make it the best of the 5 variants. So if you like the Baller, the LE is the quickest of the bunch. But the Huntley S was always quicker. The Huntley S was released relatively early, I think it was 2014, and with that 1 minute 12.7 lap time, that's significantly quicker than what we saw from any of the Ballers, and this was always the go-to for SUV racers back in the day. But then DLCs came, and now the Huntley S doesn't even make it into the top 5, because we've got the Armoured XLS, which is the only armoured version of any car in the game that is quicker than the regular version, and it's basically just because they programmed it to have more engine power, so it's quicker in a straight line. With a 1 minute 11.5, this overtook the Huntley S as the quickest SUV. And then I think it was after that, I'm pretty sure we got the XLS after the Huntley S and before our 4th place vehicle, the Contender, but my memory might be serving me wrong there, and we got the Contender first. But the Contender is basically a truck, and it gets a 1 minute 9 lap time, which it's quite similar to a few pre-existing trucks in the off-road class, but for some reason the Contender was put in the SUVs class, and it made no sense. It completely dominated the class, and we couldn't understand it. But there you go. Now it doesn't even matter, because it doesn't even make it into the top 3, because we've got the new breed of SUVs that have come in the latest DLCs that completely decimate everything else. So we've gone from a 1 minute 12 with the Huntley S that was the long-standing king, to a 1 minute 9 with the Contender, and now we're looking at 1 minute 6 lap time. So 1 minute 6.7 for the Rebel GTS. You do need the maximum camber on the suspension, the lowest suspension, to be able to get that. It's one of the few cars from the Casino Heist DLC that has that little quirk. But a 1 minute 6.7 is absolutely ridiculous, and that's sort of mid-tier sports car level of lap time. And these cars, I mean, the Rebel are probably more so than any of the other 3 in the top 3, but they don't really feel like SUVs anymore. They lose that the slow, laboured cornering that made all the old SUVs more fun to drive as a different experience. Now they just feel like a little bit bigger versions of sports cars. But obviously in 2nd place here we've got the Novak. It's only 0.2 of a second quicker than what we saw from the Rebel GTS. Out of the top 3, the Rebel GTS is probably the nicest one to drive, because the Novak and our number 1 vehicle both have weird advanced handling flags and handling characteristics that make them not that nice to drive over bumps and things like that. But yeah, the Novak is slightly quicker than the Rebel GTS by 0.2 of a second, but ultimately nothing in the SUVs class, even our 2nd and 3rd place vehicles, can hold a candle to the number 1 vehicle from the SUVs list, and that is of course the Toros. At this point, feel free to subscribe if you haven't already for regular lap time and top speed testing videos and updates when new cars are released, and check out other classes in the playlist. But the Toros gets a lap time of 1 minute 4.865, which is almost 2 seconds per lap quicker than the Novak, and we're talking a good number of seconds quicker than the old style vehicles like the Huntley and Ballers and things like that. Now, the Toros's problem previously was always that it had those advanced handling flags that we saw from the Arena War DLC, and it wasn't very nice to drive. But since the Casino DLC, those advanced handling flags were changed and made less bad. Basically, they're still there, so the Toros isn't the greatest thing to drive, but it's a bit better than what it was going over bumps and things like that. But a 1 minute 4 lap time, that's not too far off what we saw from the Turismo Classic in the Sports Classics class, and it's kind of crazy that an SUV gets this kind of lap time. And when we see the comparison here between the Toros, which is the number 1 vehicle now, and the Huntley S, which was the number 1 vehicle for a long time, that's a big lap time difference. And like I said, these top few vehicles, because of their speed and their grip around the corners, really, they just don't feel like SUVs. They just feel like big, bulky sports cars. And a 1 minute 4.8 that's a quicker lap time than a good amount of vehicles that are in the sports class. Interestingly enough, also, we have the Striter in the sports class, which is basically an SUV. It could have easily gone in the SUV's class, that is at the very bottom of the sports class, that would have fit very nicely in the SUV's class. And you know, the Toros probably would have been totally fine to go in the sports class. So, you know, once again, as we always see with these class videos and the way that the classes are made up and the cars that are put in certain classes, it's a bit of a mess, and it only takes one vehicle to be significantly quicker and be programmed to be much faster than everything else to make all of the cars in the class redundant. And that's what happens here with the Toros. You know, so much quicker than the Huntley S, as we just saw there, and so much quicker even than our second and third place vehicles in terms of lap time. We will obviously be seeing the top speed testing for this class as well. Feel free to check that out if you want to see how all these cars rank for top speed. But for now, that's pretty much it. Consider supporting on Patreon or become a YouTube member if you want to get testing results early, and remember to read the description for more info, comment with your thoughts, like the video if you enjoyed it, found it helpful, and subscribe for more. Thank you all so much for watching, I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.